In this video, we're going to look at some of the modifications I've made over the years to the classic Rubbermaid utility cart. Now, of course, many people make carts, so it applies to almost all plastic utility carts. Now, the best feature about these carts is the price. You can now find these for under $150 online, and for a piece of film equipment, that's just a great price. The fact that these carts are made out of plastic I find to be actually a very good advantage because they're waterproof. And as you know, our gear works year-round in all sorts of weather, and something waterproof is just really handy to have. The fact that the handles are made out of plastic is nice because in the wintertime they don't get impossibly cold to touch, and in the summer times they don't get burning hot. Now, this particular cart has a built-in cup holder, which I personally find to be a great feature. Don't know why, because as you know, we're always holding, thermoses or cups of coffee or cups of or bottles of water, and it's just kind of a nice little feature to have. Now, as they're made and delivered, they are not ideal carts for production, so let's go over some of the deficits and some of the alterations that we typically make to these carts. Now, the biggest deficit to the factory carts are, of course, these wheels. As you can see, they're very narrow and they're very hard. Now, when you're rolling over anything other than a very smooth, hard surface, they become a bit of a disaster. Now, you can order these carts with pneumatic wheels, as you can see in this catalog picture here. However, you're really paying a premium for these pneumatic tires. Now, a design feature that was always a problem was this height. It's actually a little short. For example, with a standard Pelican, it doesn't really fit going in this way. We'd always had to turn a Pelican over and put it in like that and then flip it over. And so it's the height of the slip was a problem. So what I did was I routed out this slip with a router so that we could take our Pelican and slide it in and just get a little more storage capacity out of it. Now, to overcome some of the deficits I always thought the Rubbermaids had, I simply went ahead and made a metal subframe for these Rubbermaids, and this one is made out of angle iron. It's just a simple way to add a lot of strength to the units and a good place to add different casters for the carts. And I also obviously added this vertical support. It's fully welded to take out some of the wonkiness Rubbermaids have. For example, when you're pushing a Rubbermaid on some rough terrain or grass, it does tend to, wobble a little bit. And by having a solid welded frame, it eliminates that wobble. Now, as far as wheels go, this is the caster that came to Rubbermaid. As you can see, compared to the tires I'm using, it's much shorter and very narrow and hard. Now, eventually I settled on using all no-flat tires. They kind of have some of the advantages of air tires in that they do give a little bit of cushion, but the main advantage is you never have to add air. So flat tires, constantly filling tires with air becomes a thing of the past and just makes life a little bit easier. Now, while I was at it, I did go ahead and came up with this simple braking system, and it's just a toggle clamp up here with some linkage going to this crossbar. When you push down, it clamps against these two rigid casters and completely locks these two wheels. So it's a very simple, easy to use handbrake to use with Rubbermaids. So now let's go grab a cart and put it on top. Okay, now riding on top of the no flats, the Rubbermaid cart is actually quite a bit higher than on stock height. And for me, I'm 5'10", this is actually a much more comfortable working height than a stock Rubbermaid, which would have been down here. Now, to make this thing a little more functional and more specific for our application, I made a few things for myself. First thing was a simple tripod holder. This gets placed right here, gets bolted through the top shelf in these two spots, and I have two traditional tripod holders that pivot away. Next, I made a fluid head holder. Okay, it's a simple bracket. Again, this will go on this end of the cart. Two bolts will go through the top shelf. A third one will come in over here. And in this case, I'm using a 150mm bowl from Long Valley Equipment. Now, Doug also makes Mitchell and 100mm bowls for his 7 jib, and I just simply adopted it for my camera cart. Now, if you can imagine, with the fluid head here, especially on a larger head like a 25-75, it's going to, end up about here. The camera's going to be about this high. So it's starting to get a little tall. The center of gravity is probably getting a little high, and it's a little harder to build a camera when it's that tall. So what I did is I made a simple L bracket. I'll take off this head holder here, and I'll bolt this on, and I'll use a quick release. Now this is an old Manfrotto quick release. You could use a QRB made by several different companies for Euro plates, and it'll go right here. And this way, you'll put your camera right over here about this high. It's much lower, it's a little easier to build, and probably a little more secure. So I made this little bracket for myself. And finally, to make this even more versatile, I welded on a piece of tubing on the bottom of the base of this cart, and to turn it into a C+ stand holder. Now on top, I use a simple traditional U-bolt, and it'll get bolted through right up here with 2 bolts, and now I have a C-stand permanently mounted on the cart. Now typically we'll mount a monitor up here. You could also use it as a rigging point for rain protection, and I've also of course had Steadicams on top of this. So this has now become a very specific and handy camera cart. Now after all this was done, guys would start to ask me if I had a more portable version. And I thought about it for a while, and I did come up with a more portable cart based off of Rubbermaids. So let's take a look at that now. So here's my take on a knockdown Rubbermaid based camera cart. Now on the business end over here, we of course have our tripod's leg holders. These are hinged to get out of the way if we need them to. And we have 2 long baby pins. Now these baby pins, they're welded on top and on bottom so they don't twist off easily. And of course we have our bracket for our head holder. Again, Mitchell mount made by Long Valley Equipment. And with something like this offset baby riser, this is where I'll typically mount a monitor. It'll go right here. You can pivot around a little bit. We could have 2 monitors on this end, or we could use this as a starting point to rig rain protection or any other tool that we commonly use in production. I've taken off the Rubbermaid portion of this cart to show the construction of the framework. Now the whole idea of the knockdown cart of course is to ease transportation, so we could carry these carts in minivans and SUVs and maybe even station wagons. And to do that, we just simply need to pull it apart. Now it's just held in place on top on with these 4 lockdowns, and the top just pops right off. Now these side pieces simply, they're attached with a couple of lockdown screws, and they'll just pop right off. Now on this side, with the braking system, the linkage, I just have a quick release here. I'll pop off, and this side will pop off. Now at this point, because of the weight of the steel and the tires, to me it's easiest just to move it around like this. It'll roll on these 2 wheels, and I did add some small inline skate wheels just to make it easy to move around. Now initially, I did think about sandwiching the top and bottom, but if you do that, it gets heavy again. But the idea again was to, like that, to line them up, and you can have top and bottom together. And then you can wheel around the whole cart or store it this way, store it vertically. My only issue is it actually weighs quite a bit right now. However, initially I planned not to use this handbrake system that I came up with. I was just going to use these type of brakes, friction brakes. Now, I was able to locate no-flat tires, large no-flats, with these treadlock brakes. Now, they don't work as well as the toggle bolt handbrake, but they actually work, they work adequately. They'll definitely slow down a cart on most inclines. In New York, it's pretty safe. In San Francisco, probably not. But these are quick release with 1 bolt. These wheels will come right off. The casters will come off. And at that point, the cart is much more, the profile is much smaller. It's easier to store in different areas, storage units, apartments, closets, what have you. But I think for transportation, I really designed this to be able to transport easily, and I probably would not sandwich them back together. I would just keep them separate. So this is the breakdown Rubbermaid based camera cart. So that's been my journey with Rubbermaids as camera carts. Now, if you're handy, you know how to weld and fabricate, you're free to copy or borrow any of my ideas for your own carts. Now in the near future, I hope to make our smaller, more mobile, more vertically oriented camera carts for new media shoots. I mean, these carts are great for larger shoots when you have camera crews, but sometimes, you know, we have these small corporate shoots and we just need a very light and mobile package. And that's what I'll be working on next.